All right, everyone, welcome back to Getting In a College Coach Conversation. We've got DJ Mian, we've got Niall Relay, and Shannon Vasconcelos, and me, Ian Fisher. I don't even know if I introduced myself at the first segment. I'm hosting today. We're talking all about numbers and trying to make sense of some data that are out there to help you in your college search. And now we want to turn our attention to the career search and understanding a little bit about how majors might be connected to particular professional outcomes of interest to students. So if you're watching this on our social media page, you can see the screen share that I've got up now. If you're listening, we're going to make it rich and exciting for you even without this. I am at the website for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is bls.gov. They are the ones that do the monthly employment reports. They track all kinds of information about jobs in the United States of America. And they have a really wonderful resource here on their website. Down at the bottom, it's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. I'm going to click on that and pull it up, and we're going to talk a little bit about how students can use this as they're thinking about their futures. So let's just start big and broad. DJ, I've clicked this link. We're at the OOH. What is it?
Oh my gosh, it is like a treasure. This is like a magical place. It makes me love the Department of Labor. First and foremost, I'm a big fan. I recommend downloading this app. I just did it the other day and it was like, this is great. Like at your fingertips, you have this tool, which is fantastic. Okay, so first and foremost, accessible on your phone. Second, there's a couple of things. Actually, second, I'll point to the glossary. I'm a big fan of the glossary. It's like the fourth thing over on the top there. And usually glossaries aren't that sexy, but again, nerds unite. This is a really nice glossary, particularly so for example, if you go down to education, so this is like a bunch of microeconomic terms, but also terms related to sort of the college process, post-secondary sort of attainment goals. So like, I love the definition, right, of like breaking down what a doctorate is, a master's degree, an associate's, a bachelor's. Like there's just a lot of sort of fundamental definitions in this glossary that I find are really useful. And I know as a high school counselor, I often took for granted like I was talking to kids about the 4-year degree and they had no idea like what a bachelor's degree was or what an engineering degree was. So as a starting place, this glossary is really awesome. And again, like an adulting 101 kind of glossary. It's very useful. And I love the way it's written. I don't know who's writing for the Department of Labor, but they've got like a nice Hemingway kind of like clear, like no BS style that I find really instructive, just the way it's set up. So glossary would be my first point of departure. Second, I love how this is set up. So I was thinking about this earlier. When I was a kid, I loved, the original like Roget's thesaurus, like the old school sort of system that he had set up where you would like search for a word in the back. And then he had like these 6 different sections that you would like cross-reference. And I was a nerd who loved to read the thesaurus because it wasn't just about sort of synonyms. It was sort of seeing like a web of connections, right? And sort of understanding vocabulary in a larger way. I feel like this is what they've done with this little system in terms of helping us understand a network of career opportunities and skills and sort of how they all connect and how they might overlap, and allows, I think, students and families to kind of see things they might not have seen otherwise. So they've got this set up by occupational groups, which is, usually easy enough for a 16 or 17-year-old to like identify like some general groups of interest. But then when you go into the different occupational groups, it gives you like a really nice menu and laundry list of different ideas that are still within them pretty broad, right? Of different sort of other like vocational directions that could be connected to your interests. Then, and this is me again geeking out, like this is where the thesaurus piece comes in. There's this other page that's connected to BLS. So there's several pages. So if you go to that main homepage, like actually go back to like art and design. Let's go to arts and design and occupational groups, and pick art director as an example. If you scroll down to the bottom of the summary, you're going to see a link. It says more information, including links to ONET. When you find something that's interesting, like an occupation that's interesting, follow the link to the ONET. And so ONET is still part of this BLS page. You have to kind of click to go out a little bit. It's a little clunky.
They're trying to keep us here in the BLS.
They are.
This is where the stuff is. Gotta say. So we want to get out.
But then this is awesome. So this is ONET is like an occupational dictionary that's connected to the OOH, to the O. And what's cool about the ONET is that then they go down and they go into real specificity of breaking down each occupation in terms of skill sets, knowledge, actual like activities that you would be engaged in, and then there's a little like an interest profile also connected to this that identifies your superpowers and your interests, and then allows you to kind of reverse engineer by identifying the skills or the knowledge sets that you're interested in, can give you also ideas like of occupational direction. So it allows you to sort of, again, like reverse engineer a little bit, using their little like identity profile, or and then again, if there's things that you're already interested in, right? Like I went in there and it's fascinating, I was like, let me learn about college counseling, right? And then it can allow me to sort of reverse engineer the skill set that I already have in my current job, right? And identify other vocations, right? That I'm equipped to do as well. So it's super useful. It's fun. It's also connected. You'll see a link in there to something called Career One Stop. Again, this is all under the same umbrella. I'm not sure why it's a little clunky in terms of how they all connect. Career One Stop has a link to the same OneNet profiler, which is great. So if you go through Career One Stop, it'll take you to the same, you'll end up in the same places.
Yes.
What's cool about Career One Stop, I think it's a little bit, it's an audience that's a little older, right? Career One Stop has like resume tips on networking, tips on finding jobs, and search engines for more practical job searches. So that's where the difference is. Finally, students, if they're on the ONET, right, and they're like geeking out about what they learned about being an art director or whatever, they'll also see a link for something that says like Easy Read. And that's another website that, again, I think is for a younger audience. So if you have students that are like in middle school or younger high school, I recommend they check out, it's called My Next Move. And again, same umbrella, same database, but gives you like a little one pager, that again, I think is a little more accessible to a younger audience, to give you an overview of that profession. The cool thing too about My Next Move is that they have these little blurbs in Spanish as well.
Great.
Which is nice for families too, that want to sort of engage with this and learn a little bit more about different career pathways.
That's great. And these
Yep.
all seem to be connected back to art directors, right? So I start with that particular profession and then I follow this rabbit hole, but it's not spitting me out to the top every time.
Exactly.
And so you can find related information that's all connected to that.
Absolutely. And it links to professional organizations, certification programs. I mean, if there are sort of licensing expectations, stuff like that, it takes you in all of those different directions. I'm also a fan of like the similar occupations link, again, like ways that we can sort of expand students' minds about different options so that they don't feel maybe so limited. I think it's also great myth busting, for example, though, for students who are interested in like the creative arts, where everybody's telling them, they're going to go hungry, this myth of the starving artist, right? Like this is also like a really useful way to show like how, you can be a creative professional, right? And go in different directions. I also like for students like that too, when you go into the ONET and it breaks down like the soft skills that you need as well as the hard skills that you need. Kind of reminds you, like, for example, like the art students, I love when you go into the like the soft skills, like the importance of like business management, executive functioning skills, being organized, like you've got to run a business, right? And so I think also having those conversations and understanding the soft skills as well as sort of the more like concrete skills connected can help a student also sort of unpack a direction that makes sense for them and gives them a little structure. But that's the qualitative data. I think Shannon probably has a lot to say about the quantitative data in there too.
Yeah, Shannon, did you want to point out anything else?
Yeah.
I mean, there are aspects of this that are related to pay. Now, the pay typically is the median wage.
Yeah.
So usually mid-career kind of professional, not what you're going to get right out of college. But how can students look at some of these data and think about that in terms of that return on the investment of an undergraduate degree?
Yeah, and this is what I tend to look at the most when I'm talking to families about paying for college and often borrowing to pay for college, and what kind of borrowing is reasonable based on the student's career expectations. And I think we have to take kind of all of this with a grain of salt, understanding that what students think they're going to do at age 17 often does not end up what they're going to do. They could change many times in between. But I like to, if they think they have a sense of what they might want to do, take a look at that career on that pay tab on this one stop, and take a look at the average salary. And they actually, if you can go to to anything, any job here. You know
All
what?
right.
Ian, if you want to pull up, just because I was looking at it earlier and I like it, genetic counselor, just for kicks. And
Genetic counselor.
genetic counselor. And the reason I pulled this up is
I'm gonna
because
search
this
it.
is a job that in high school I had no idea existed. And when I was pregnant with my children, I had to go through some genetic counseling. And I was like, this is a job. This is so cool. I remember when I was in high school, I liked the genetics part of biology class. I had no idea that this was a career field you could go into. I thought with genetics, maybe you could go into research science, but there's this whole other field. And when you explore on the Occupational Outlook Handbook, you can find careers like this. Like if you think you're interested in healthcare, you might think doctor, nurse, what else is there? And there's a whole list of things. But this, so if you could, yeah, we can just kind of scan through the tabs very quickly. There's a tab of what do genetic counselors actually do? What does your day-to-day job look like? Where do you work? Usually in a hospital. Does that sound like an environment that would make you happy? Maybe, maybe not. How to become one. So here it looks at the career expectations. You typically need a master's degree. So thinking about paying for that's an extra financial commitment you have to think about if the field you want to go into requires extra education. The qualities that are important to this job are those qualities that you have or would like to develop. And then the pay tab, I like to look at again when talking about families thinking of borrowing for college.
Yeah.
Is the amount they're thinking about reasonable? So you can look at the average salary for genetic counselors. Average, again, over a 40-year career is $80,000. That's a nice salary compared to the average of other healthcare professionals. You can see that comparison and the average of all occupations. So it looks like pretty good career pay prospects there. It also tells you, actually, sorry, could you flip back to the pay tab for a second? Yes. It also tells you the lowest 10% earn about $49,000. When I'm thinking about coming right out of school, I would think more like the lowest 10% as a way to, don't think you're going to be making 80 grand right out of school. I would think more about that number. And it's not, again, not an exact science, but when you're thinking about borrowing for college, there's sort of a rule of thumb that I think is decent about don't borrow any more total over your 4 years of college than you expect to make your first year out of school. So if I thought I was going to be a genetic counselor, I probably wouldn't want to borrow more than $50,000 for college. And, again, not an exact science, but a rule of thumb. What I would love to see people do with this data, which most people won't take it this far, but actually do a budget. When you're thinking about borrowing, okay, I'm thinking about borrowing $30,000. What does that equate to in monthly loan payments? There are lots of loan repayment calculators you can find online. Okay, can I actually afford that kind of monthly loan payment? Students who are, 17 years old have never often maintained a budget, have never paid rent, have never paid for utilities. I'll sign on the dotted line to borrow $50,000, $100,000, not knowing what that means to their life. I would love for more students and parents, do this with your student, work through a budget. Okay, this is what you might be able to expect in salary after you pay taxes. That's what this equates to on a monthly basis. Okay, now you got to pay rent. Now you got to pay utilities. You got to pay your car payment. And does this student loan payment fit into that budget or not? And that can help you get a sense of if this particular school and what I'm planning to borrow to attend that school makes sense for you, or if you might want to explore some other options. But sorry, just to go back to the tabs, Ian, you can look at job outlook if there's expected growth in this field. If you go to this, you can get actually state and state demographics. So instead of like the national average salary, you can get more local information. And then I love the similar occupations. So it lists for, if you were thinking about genetic counseling, well, what are some other options that might be kind of like that? Well, I could be a physician and make a lot more money. The wages greater than 200,000 for physicians, but I also need a professional degree. So there's going to be more of an investment there. And you can learn all about that career. Or maybe, hey, marriage and family therapist. I never thought about that, but that uses some of the same skills. Lower median pay. Am I willing to accept that? But I just love this website. I think it's a great website for exploring different fields. And it does tell you kind of different, I think I skipped over this, but what different majors could kind of lead naturally into that sort of career field. So I think it can be good for that purpose.
And Niall, this is something where we have a lot of familiarity with this website and we know how to sort of pick through all of the different data and look at stuff, and it's fun and interesting, but I can imagine for a student, it's fairly overwhelming. It's like, well, what's my future look like? And what's the information that's going to help point me in that right direction? I just got to decide where I'm going to apply to college, what major I'm going to apply for. How do you direct students to think about using this as a resource and helping it to answer some of those big questions they have about their future?
Thank you for asking the question. I was just going to chime in and share that in any case. And so often we work with students who are like, forget career. I have no idea what major I want to be in. I'm a senior in high school and I still don't know, right? And there are really great resources, and DJ referred to one earlier, that will help get you moving in the direction of which of these occupational links do I even check out to begin with, right? So both ONET and Career One Stop have these skills assessments and interest assessments that will help you have vocabulary, right? To say, okay, these are the sorts of work environments I want to be in. I'm best suited to work in a team or outdoors or with my hands or at a computer or at a desk, and all those sorts of things can be factored in and help you get a stronger sense of which careers might be a good match for that. So both ONET and Career One Stop have that, and they're free resources, which are awesome. But beyond that as well, you might find something like the Holland Self-Assessment or the StrengthsFinders 2.0 Clifton Strengths. These are websites where you might have to pay a little bit to access them, those particular surveys, but that's another route that you can go if you want to, if you're enjoying that process of sort of self-discovery and imagining your future. And then always, I think, related back to these tools that we've shared in terms of various occupations where you can see those things manifest.
I think there's a real important lesson here in that we very rarely with a student will ask them first off, what do you want to major in? Because the major is a tool. It's a potential pathway towards not even a guaranteed particular outcome. And I think a lot of families are thinking about what should my major be? When in fact, what we should be thinking about is what do I like to do? What kind of environment do I want to be in? What are my skills? What am I good at? What do I want to get better at? And I love that that's the language that you're all using as you're talking about this stuff. It's more about that discovery as opposed to, I need an answer right now at 15 so that I can start getting ready. Like that's not consistent, I think, with any of our practices. Final word from any of you. Let's start with DJ. We'll go counterclockwise again. Just quickly, is there anything that you want students to take away from this resource?
I think it's the point that you just made, right? That this is not like a limiting conversation. If anything, this is about opening up possibilities, right? And seeing the myriad of different directions that you can go in. It's not about sort of honing in on one thing, but preparing yourself and learning, right? And being intentional then about developing the skills that are going to get you to the next step. It's fun, that's I think
that's the idea. Yeah.
Right? It's like, what a luxury that we get to sort of figure this out and learn about ourselves and be better people, right? And the job and the employment comes, right? I guess and I know that's sometimes hard to to accept or understand, right? But if you put in the work and you're present and engaged in this life, it's
Niall, any final thoughts from you?
No, I echo that entirely. And the adage that many of you might have already heard that we're preparing students, we're working with students are going to college in order to prepare themselves for careers that might not even exist in the future. So guess what? Even this giant list that you get access to via these resources, it's not comprehensive, right? And that's such a beautiful thing. And so yes, really the idea is, okay, how can we help use these tools to be mirrors to students to be able to build that vocabulary and self-confidence about what they can do with their lives, and also be open to that shifting if necessary.
Great. Shannon, anything from you?
Inform yourself and have fun.
Love it. That's great. Speaking of staying informed, we'll be back again next week. We're going to have Beth on to host. We'll talk about what to do if your student wants to transfer as a college student. We'll discuss summer programs and whether it's too early to start thinking about them. Spoiler, it's not, because we will be thinking about them in that segment. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to receive in-state tuition as an out-of-state student. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday break. Thank you to DJ, Niall, and Shannon for being here. We'll see you all again next week.
Thank you.